Hey team, welcome back to another great episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell. Today I'm on with Nick Bancroft. He is the CEO at AgroLiquid in Michigan from my family's home territory, which I like. So excited to have Nick on here and talk a little bit about what it means to be the CEO there, what intentional leadership looks like for him. Nick, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Mark.
What does it mean for you to be intentional?
I'm a planner by nature, so intentionality for me looks like planning out my daily tasks, looking at what I got to accomplish during the week and the quarter, and just breaking it up and blocking the time and being intentional with the time that I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So as somebody who lifetime struggler in the world of planning, what pro tips would you give somebody? One or two things that are like this would make your planning life better. I don't care if it's software, habits, what works for you.
Um, I use my calendar. I live by my calendar. I think more important than that, though, is remembering what's the most important thing you have to get done. What
Mm,
this quarter, this month, will the business only be successful if you accomplish that task, and be sure you put time to that work first.
hmm. Yeah. Good. Straightforward. I like it. I like it. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Nick, and a little bit about AgroLiquid, if you would.
Yeah, AgroLiquid's a family business. My dad and grandfather started about 40 years ago. I've been active in the business full time for about 20 years. We sell fertilizer products across the United States, high quality, high agribiz or agronomy service to our customers.
Mhm.
Um, Manufacture across the country and do deliveries both to retailers and on farm. So do a lot of things to help prosper the farmer.
Mhm. Good stuff. That's great. Well, I mean, tell us a little bit about, in a space like that, you guys are across the country, you got, quite a few employees working there now. How have you dealt with the demand on talent? Because I know a lot of people struggle to try and bring people in. What have you guys been doing to solve for that?
I feel like we've been pretty aggressive and innovative in that space. We've had a full-time recruiter on staff for several years now, and for a company our size, we got about 140 employees. That's a commitment to attracting and hiring good people. As far as retaining goes, everybody wants to work for a good company. What does that mean? Uh, a good atmosphere, a good place to work, a place that's enjoyable, a place where there's clear expectations. I think we all want to know what's expected of us so that we can perform to that level. A place that listens to employees. We do a employee engagement survey each year now, and that's a newer thing for us too. And we take feedback from our employees and we use that to tailor the programs, the atmosphere, and the company to what employees are looking for.
Mm,
There's a lot of benefits that people are looking for too, long term, from a retention standpoint. We do tuition reimbursement. We have a philanthropy program that we match. We check in on people, have conversations with them, see how they're doing, treat them like you would somebody in your family.
mhm.
We continue to work and adapt our benefits program and do compensation reviews on a regular basis with annual living wage adjustments and just a lot of different things to make employees feel valued, to get them engaged in the process of what they earn and how they earn it. And I think that results in an engaged employee who wants to come and do the work every day.
Yeah, that's cool. I really like that. I love the intentional approach. I think I asked that question to a lot of guests, but you have a very specific list of things that we can almost make a checklist out of. But I like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that probably speaks to your personality style, being a very good planner and being able to think ahead. That's, for me, the biggest challenge in being intentional is really seeing the roadmap ahead and then making sure that we take the time, and block the time in the calendar to actually go to work on those things. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
busy, right, to be able to keep up with the demand of that.
You have to put the time in, and it's easy to be busy. It's challenging to be busy doing the right things.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really, really good way of putting it. What do you do to build culture intentionally within that? I think what you said probably speaks to it, but I'd be interested in what else you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's another thing we focused on in the last probably half a dozen years is communicating what culture is. I think you know what it is when you're there, but how do you tell people coming in and how do you set expectations for culture? We have a set of core values: authentic, passionately engaged, servant leader, humbly confident. And we review these with each employee annually. Say, hey, you're doing well in these categories. That's part of the culture here at AgroLiquid. Not so well in the other. And none of us are perfect, and you don't have to be wonderful at everything, but you need to fit to a certain level. We added to that 12 characteristics that kind of explain in a little more detail who we are and what we do at AgroLiquid, and we put together a video and highlight those each month across the business to help people understand and engage in different ways.
Interesting. Very, and so do you have specific team members internally that are assigned to those tasks in creating the video and other resources?
Yeah, my middle brother works in workplace development, and he's kind of the culture liaison, if you will. So he helps me put the videos together. Truthfully, he probably leads that process, and he makes sure that at the sites and locations we have and people in the field all understand that.
Sure. Oh, that's cool. I like it. Is there being in a family-owned company, which I love, by the way? Is there any challenge in being in the workspace? I think you said both your brothers work there, right?
Yep, yep. One in workplace development, one in operations.
So does that bring up any unique scenarios when you get all the family working under one hood?
Oh no, that doesn't create any challenges. I'm sure many of the people listening to this would say, I just can't imagine anything more fun than working with my siblings, right? I'm kidding. Of course, there's challenges to that, and there's opportunities though. I think you have a good understanding of how each other think. You have good trust amongst each other, and there's conflict with that too. And I think the better we are at managing conflict, the better we set the rules of engagement, the easier that process goes. And thankfully for me and in our business, that's worked pretty well. There's still time to mess it up though, but it's works well so far.
Sure. My wife and I run our business together. And when we started out, we were separate. So she has an executive coaching enterprise, and I had an employee coaching enterprise. And then in some ways, they worked together. We generated a lot of leads for her. But then we just decided it makes sense to actually put this under one hood, solve for the branding, and let's go to market that way. And so we've actually been in the process for most of 2024 doing that. And so it brings up some unique challenges. We work together very well. We have a common vision. We know we have our common core values like you guys do. And yet there's times when it's like we get to express patience.
Yeah.
We get to work on a lot of things, right? So, okay. What for you, Nick? What's been one of the biggest hurdles you've had to overcome in the course of your career?
Well, we'll keep talking about family business, right? So that's one of the hurdles here. You want to be viewed as a competent leader by your long-term employees, by stakeholders. When I graduated from college, I said, I'm never going back to school. Well, I worked a few years and said, okay, I'm going to go back to school, get an MBA, get a little more credibility, learn some things. The more you do things, the more you don't know about the things you do. Right. So just building that credibility so people view you as who you are. I've worked in the same company my whole career. I think when you change jobs, you have an opportunity to ratchet up people's perception of your skills. When you
Mm,
work the same job for a long time, people remember all of the silly things that you did a long time ago.
interesting. Yeah, that law of familiarity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's super interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Yep. But it's also, I feel like, even when you think about leading, if I want to be an innovative leader or a transformational leader or a good coach or whatever, I mean, even Jesus had a hard time going back to his hometown, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
He tried to throw
that's
him.
that's where I've lived my whole life.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. It's have there been is there a different do you feel like there's a different expectation on you as a third generation leader within the company, within the family, leading this company than say if we brought in an outside? If I came in as the CEO, would there be a different expectation?
Um, I'd like to think not. Um, I'd like to think that the expectations on me are the same as they'd be on anybody else. I'd also like to think that I'm my own worst critic, trying to make myself better. But I think people would expect different things from someone from the outside. I
Mhm.
think that the expectation from someone from the inside or family is more continuity of the business, of the strategy, of the atmosphere. Um, and that's good and it's challenging at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Very interesting to think about. Well, what has been your biggest win as a leader?
For me, the thing that's made the biggest difference to my ability to lead is probably 6 or 7 years ago, we implemented EOS. That's a entrepreneurial operating system. If you're not familiar,
Traction on
and
this stuff.
traction, yeah, and that really allowed us to restructure the business for better leadership, more effective management, enhanced communication, clear goal setting. I think people understand better where we're going, why we're going there, and what they have to do to help us get there on a quarterly, an annual, a weekly basis. And that has really helped, I think helped our effectiveness from a management perspective.
Yeah. So do you find yourself in more the visionary role or the integrator role?
Uh yeah. I'm an integrator by nature.
Yeah.
So that tends to be who I am. Um, my dad was more active in the business as the visionary. We're now in this odd place where I'm on the leadership team as the leader. My youngest brother's on the leadership team. My middle brother sits in there and he's the workplace development guy, but he really kind of fills that visionary role as well and pushes us and asks hard questions that sometimes we don't really want to deal with or answer. And that is one of the values that you need in a healthy
Right.
EOS atmosphere, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah, that's for those that are. I know Nick mentioned it earlier, but for those listening, EOS Entrepreneurial Operating System is really a. I mean, there's a set of books and then coaching and courses and so forth that you can go through to get a nice operating system for how to lead your company, how to create expectations, set expectations, goals, et cetera, projections, and so forth within the business. It's a really an incredible resource. And when we for our business, it became very obvious. I'm a visionary, and my wife is involved. She's also visionary. So you have two visionaries trying to take this thing somewhere,
Mm,
and we can take it to a certain point. And what we would notice is we would always, I can get this thing to a certain point, and we bump up against the ceiling because that's
yep.
just how I can handle. And I would be so mad at myself because of I just felt so frustrated getting to that point. And so we've added that that person into the mix, and a couple of different times as we've grown now, and we're actually recruiting for a new one as we speak, because we just know, like, to get to the next level, we got to have somebody who can add that rocket fuel, if you will,
Right.
to. So we're interviewing right at this very moment. Hopefully, by the time this goes live, we'll probably have that person in place. But some people need it. Some people are visionaries, and some people are not. And some people are good planners and good integrators, and some people are not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I would recommend to people listening, figure out which one you are.
Right. That's a hard question to answer if you hadn't thought about it before.
Yeah. Well, because I think we all sort of grow up, at least in our generation, thinking that I should just be able to do it all, right?
Right.
Like, shoulder the load and handle it. But the reality is, like, yes, you can shoulder the load alone for a point, or to a point, or for a season. But we all get maxed out because your strengths, like, you were anointed for a certain specific reason that you're here on this planet. Like, lean into that, and you're going to be more engaged. The people around you are going to be happier too. So,
Right.
yeah, who's been somebody you've really admired, Nick, over the course of your career?
I'm gonna answer that in a general way. I'd say I admire those who remain active learners throughout their career, people that do that towards the end. There's so much wisdom in those that have done things longer than the rest of us, and I think it's great for us to be able to learn from that. I'm the leader I am because of those who have gone before me that have cared enough to share, hey, these things worked really well for me. These are places where I've, stepped on rakes and gotten smacked in the face, and don't do that. And there's just a lot of experience out there if you're willing to listen.
Yeah, so good. One of the things we've started doing for some of our clients is actually creating special, like, in-house podcasts that are just for the company. They're not public,
Mm-hmm.
but goal is to capture that institutional knowledge that's already walking around, so that we've got an interview or set of interviews with those individuals who were there from the get-go. It's sort of a time capsule in a way, but it also helps us learn from them. And in a conversation like this, for us, it just feels like a conversation while we're going through it. But when you go back and listen to it, there's some really key learning objectives that anyone could pull out of here. That's why we make the podcast. So
Yeah.
we can do a company and interview, say, 10 people that have been around for a minute, that have had a certain level of success. And then we leverage that across the whole organization, not just once, but I mean, how many, as many times as you want to listen to it every month. Everybody in onboarding goes through these things. And man, there's so many. With today's technology, we don't have to just let that person's institutional knowledge walk out. We should be
Yeah.
captured. So
I think it's nice too that we all appreciate this kind of conversational dialogue now. I don't know what created that, but we don't expect the polish and that we used to. And so you can make really good pieces just as a conversation like we're having here.
yeah, well, it's coming back to where do we all start to learn this stuff? I mean, if you grew up with a family that worked hard and cared about each other, I mean, we were sitting around a dinner table and mom and dad were talking. We were talking as a family. This is where we were trained.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, I listened to an interview, not super popular guy in the ag industry, but I listened to RFK give an interview on one of the podcasts that he was on, and he talked about before his dad was assassinated, how they would sit around and have long, slow dinners, and they would expect debate. He would make them pick a side, pick a topic, and debate with each other, even if it wasn't what they believed.
Mm-hmm.
And this, like, we used to, like, I don't know. Remember, we used to do this in America. This used to be the way things were done. But I think that comes from just in humanity. I mean, we're communal creatures. We're designed to sit around and have conversations like this, connect with each other. And 28 minutes ago, you and I had never talked in a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. We know all these things about each other and have at least the start to a connection. Right. And that's part of what we train people to do from a sales training perspective too. Just, man, ask more questions, be curious, don't take everything personal.
Yep. Be a good listener.
Yeah, absolutely. And what book do you like, or books, if you like, that you'd recommend people be paying attention to?
For me, managing teams has been pretty critical. And if you've read Patrick Lencioni's books, the Five Dysfunctions of a Team book is a pretty great book in story form to really help you understand how people work together and how team dynamics kind of function.
Yeah, great book, great recommendation. We like Lencioni around here a lot, and I love it when people bring that one up. It's good. What do you do for you to kind of keep your energy up and keep going?
Coffee. No, but more seriously than that, just work the process, do the work. I'm a planner. Planning gives me energy. Working out, moving during the day. I do better when I can stand up and walk around and work out in the middle of the day. The EOS helps with the structure and keeping the energy up. You have meetings every week that you have to do well, and it just forces you to keep that energy up. Seek energy from the people. You talked about those conversations at a dinner table in a business setting. Often it's taking the time to sit down with somebody and just have that conversation, listen to what they're thinking, what's bothering them, what's exciting them, and that gives you more energy too.
Yeah. Are you guys still in an office setting? I know you have people all but do you people come into the office?
Yeah, we do. We're still in the office. We've got a bit of a flex, on working remote, but at the same time, we've got a third of our people in the office I work out of, and everybody else is spread out across the country. So to that point, I get a lot of energy in traveling and going out and having conversations with people, out walking fields with farmers. There's nothing better than that if you're an ag.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, yeah, the reason I asked the question is because one of the things I'm noticing, we even have to watch this within our own team, that it's so easy to get on to um, just get in the habit of jumping on these Zoom calls, and we get in, we don't have any time to actually connect, right? We get in, we do business, we get out.
Right.
We just handle it, and we move on, and because so we become these virtual terminals to each other. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
I think that can be a little bit challenging for long-term relationship building and so forth. So, what you mentioned the earlier the comment about the goal is not just to be busy, right? It's to be busy doing the right thing. So, pro tips do you have for people that need to maximize their productivity? How do you do it?
I mean, this links good to what we were talking about just a second ago. You got to find what works for you. But for me, I do my administrative heads down office work early in the day when nobody's around and try to focus on spending the rest of the day with people. That's often a lot of meetings, but at the same time, if you get the other stuff done as a leader early in the day, you tend to have a little bit more flexibility to just take the time with the people that you need to talk to and build those relationships with.
Yeah, beautiful. I like that too. And I think everybody has different cycles or different rhythms where my wife likes to do her admin stuff now, like this time of the day, 3:30 and beyond till 5. She does other more people oriented things in the morning. I'm like you. I like to do admin in the morning and then people stuff in the afternoons. So, but I think your unique rhythm is important. That's good. Glad that you got that dialed in. What's the biggest thing Nick wants to improve on this year?
I'm doing some coaching this year and some one-on-ones. So I just completed a 360 review and kind of in the middle of going through that. For me, it's tuning up my communication, strengthening my leadership. I it doesn't really matter how far you've come in communication. There's ways to do it better, ways to understand people better. It doesn't matter how well you communicate. You got to communicate to people in a way that they receive it well and that they understand what you're trying to do. Often it's communicating in a lot of different ways, whether that's in writing, whether that's video, whether that's in communication, verbal communication, just trying to make those messages land well and have people understand the message and the intent behind the message.
Yeah, I love that. Very cool. 360s can be scary.
They can.
I remember my first one. I was like, oh man, I want to crawl in a hole.
But for me, I've worked in our family business for a long time.
Yeah.
My best reviews come from people who are willing to say, "Hey, Nick, this is something you should do better. You
Hmm.
need you need to do this," because I don't often get that good feedback. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's true. Because I know, this is very true I mean, a lot of people are critical of their CEO, but the CEO doesn't always get to hear that directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And I remember when I was first building this team, let's go back to like 2017 when things really were taking off, and it just felt like we were crushing it. And our we consider our work to be in a category by itself of transformational coaching, and so we feel like we're doing good work that's really helpful to not only to the companies but to the people and to their families and so on. And we are just growing like a hockey stick up to the right, and everything was fun. And I get this 360 survey back from my team, and I felt like I was failing them, as a result. And I was grateful for the feedback, but then at the same time, I'm like, why don't you just tell me this like when it comes up?
Yeah.
Are we harboring? And I know, like, I think we're probably more open than people think we are,
Mhm.
but there's also a certain level of like, hey, we want to protect our leader from the truth for some reason. And I think that's a unique, interesting human trait.
Yeah. And I think we don't always ask for the feedback in a way that people think it's safe to provide that.
That's also true. Yeah, it's good feedback. It's good awareness right there. All right, what? So how important for you is vulnerability and being able to create an intentional work environment?
I mean, it is important. It's critical. You've got to communicate honestly and openly with your people. We talked about that from a feedback perspective. You got to be willing to take the feedback. You got to be willing to explain how we failed in the past, because in a lot of cases, history is a cycle. People are down because, oh, this new thing didn't work the way I thought it was gonna. This has happened before. Here's how we move forward. High performing teams were not perfected overnight. It's a battle. And one of the things in a workforce in any group is that as people come on and move off, that team dynamic shifts. Every
Mhm,
time you think you've got a good high performing team, you know what they need from you, something changes. And you
mhm.
and to some extent you don't have to start over at the beginning, but you got to work back through that again.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna end with a little bit of an unfair question because I'm looking at this picture of your family there behind you. You're third generation in this business, 40-year-old business. The statistics are not in favor of businesses being able to go from one generation to the next, let alone to the third, which is the least likely, like a 4% chance that the business succeeds with that generation. And I don't even think anybody measures the fourth generation. But
Yeah.
what isn't how does intentional leadership play into the, let's just say, the potential? I have no idea what your guys' business goals are or where you want to go with it, but how do you prepare a business like this to survive for the next?
Yeah, I think it's lots of conversations about it. If you're thinking that the next generation is interested in the business, having open conversations with them about what the business looks like, about what the expectations would be if they came into that. Um, you know, my picture back there is not brand new, but my family's not real. They're not in the workforce yet either. So we try to expose them to what it's like. They've done some job shadowing just this summer, even the older ones, to say, hey, here's what we do, here's why it's important, here's how it impacts our customers, and so that they can decide, do I have a vision for this or not? Because if you join a family business out of obligation, you're probably going to be on the wrong side of that statistic.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The motive and desire has got to be in the right place. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nick, this was a great interview. Thanks for being on the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast, man. Appreciate getting to know you.
Thanks, Mark. It's been fun to chat today.